Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kaviviridhitam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurida Janaha. So we were discussing about Sri Krishna going into ecstasy listening to Narain's songs. Narain was singing in his melodious voice a sweet song describing the glory of the Lord's vision. And Dr. Sarkar, though he was a highly emotional person, he was trying to control his emotions and believed that Sri Krishna should not be made or exposed to hear these intensely devotional songs because that had a tendency to evoke the highest emotions, bhava, in him, and that would be quite fatal for his throat ailment. So Dr. Sarkar was discouraging, but at the same time, he was also under that wonderful influence, uh, partly getting highly emotional. So the second song which Naren sings is about the glory or the beauty of the wonderful form of the Lord, which pales the beauty of the worldly things into insignificance. So, whatever we see, the beautiful things of the world that we see, pale into insignificance when we behold the wonderful face or the wonderful vision of our Ishta. That is the spirit of that song. So, the song goes like this. I'm giving you only the English translation. O gracious Lord, what happens, what happiness can there be in life if the bee of my soul, the soul has been compared to a bee who sits on a flower, lotus. Normally, bee settles down on the lotus and sips the honey, the essence. So the soul is compared to a bee, and the poet says, what happiness can there be in life if the bee of my soul is not lost forever in the lotus of your feet? So the feet are compared to the lotus, and if one, through his devotion, manages to focus entirely on the lotus feet of the Lord without thinking of anything else, then one finds immense bliss and peace. That's the essence of this song. And then he says, the next line, what can I gain from limitless wealth if I do not seek the gem supreme? So now the poet is trying to compare that all the wealth of the world becomes useless before this gem. Gem in the sense, the Ishta, the golden gem of consciousness which is within us. If we cannot behold, what will I gain? I may have all the wealth of the world, but that will not make me happy, even if I get limitless wealth. Then, even the child's tender face, there's a beauty connected with it. Many people would like to, definitely their own children or even their grandchildren. People fall in love with the young child's face, tender face, and they get a lot of joy. No doubt it's a joyful event or a joyful experience to enjoy the beautiful face, child's tender face of innocence. And that is what we see in the world. People die, old people, especially old people. The mother, of course, loves to see the wonderful face of the child. But even old people, they are desperate. Some of them even say, how can I die before seeing the tender face of my grandchild? So they just want to try to see the beauty that God has created. But the poet doesn't believe that is true. He says, I do not wish to behold a child's tender face if there I cannot catch a glimpse of your loving countenance. If the Lord is not present, the most beautiful child also will not the divinity will not shine forth. Sri Ramakrishna is to say that we should try to see the divine even in the child and all the wonderful things that we love. So it is the divine within them, or the divine divinity which is there, which enlivens or creates a wonderful joy or bliss in the heart. It's not the object by the object by itself, or the child by itself will not create that kind of impression. So he says, what's the use of beholding a child's tender face if there I cannot catch a glimpse of your loving countenance? Then moonlight is another wonderful thing that we love to see. The beautiful moonlight has its own beauty, and people wish to see the moonlight, sometimes walk in the moonlight or even bathe in the moonlight. He says, moonlight has no meaning for me. I see darkness everywhere unless in that moonlight I behold your loving face. So the idea is that the Lord should be so beloved, so loving, or you should love the Lord more than anything beautiful in this universe. If once we get that love, then we see the same Lord in all the beautiful things, the moonlight, the child's tender face, even in wealth and all these things. We will find a ultimate meaning and more happiness, real eternal happiness, if once we have a glimpse of the Lord. Even then, finally, in the last two lines, he says, even the untainted gold of chaste wife's love is stained unless it holds the gem of your love. A chaste wife's love for her husband is supposed to be supreme in as far as worldly love is concerned. But even that, according to the poet, is stained, is not without any defect. There is some defect, some imperfection, even in a chaste wife's love for her husband, unless the gem of the Lord's love is seen in and through it. Then finally he says, O Lord, bites me endlessly, a deadly serpent whose venom dilutes my love for you. Doubt is like he is comparing. See the poetic beauty, the the doubt which comes now and then in my mind is compared to a deadly serpent whose venom, whose venom dilutes my love for you. So if I don't love you and keep doubting your existence, doubting my love for you, then he says that, oh my Lord, it is like a deadly serpent, and the venom, the venom of doubt poisons my heart, and I suffer. The doubt bites me endlessly. So it's like a deadly serpent biting you continuously and shedding its poison or venom into your body. What more can I say, my Lord? You are the precious jewel of my heart and abode of my joy. So even Doctor was so fascinated by this wonderful poetry and the way Naren was singing it in Bengali. He says when the Doctor hears the line, even the untainted gold of the chaste wife's love and all the other things is stained unless it holds the gem of your love. His eyes are filled with tears and he exclaims, ah, ah. So even he finds the spirit of this song so beautiful that he is wonderstruck at Sri Ramakrishna's Samadhi and Naren singing. When Naren is singing this beautiful song and trying to share the divine experience of the experience of divine love with all those who are present. Even an atheist like the Doctor who does not believe in a personal God, his eyes are filled with tears. That was the wonderful effect the song had on the hearers. This was on 27th October 1885. Then Naren sings another song, the third song, where he says, oh, when will ecstatic love dawn in my heart? When shall I, wishing for nothing else, chant Hari's name while tears stream from my eyes? This is a beautiful song. the Vaishnavas sing. This song is Koto Dine Hobe She Prema Sanchar. That's a beautiful song. Koto Dine Hobe She Prema Sanchar. Hoye Purnakam. Hoye Purnakam. The song continues like that. Bolbo Hari Nam. Bahibe Noyane Prema Ashrudhar. So that is the wonderful song, Koto Dine Hobe, She Prema Sanchar. When will that ecstatic love dawn in my heart? When shall I wishing for nothing else? Hoye Purna Kam means one whose all worldly desires have been fulfilled. Hoye Purna Kam, Bolvo Hari Nam. Chant Hari's name. Bolvo Hari Nam while tears stream from my eyes. And Ashrudhar will be continuously. Ashrudhar means tears, stream of tears will flow from my eyes at the ecstatic chant of Hari's name. The moment Hari's name was chanted, the Lord's name was chanted, Sri Ramakrishna used to go into that ecstasy. The ecstatic love was there in her heart. It was overflowing, and it overflowed and touched everybody who was present in that beautiful gathering. So this is the song Koto Dine Hobe She Prema Sanchar. Oh, when will ecstatic love dawn in my heart? When shall I, wishing for nothing else, chant Hari's name while tears stream from my eyes? So this is a situation, this is a devotion, intense spirit of devotion, which is created in the mind of the devotee of Hari the moment he hears Hari's name. Then he says, when will my life breath pran and mind be pure? When shall I, a pilgrim to the Vrindavan of love, shed my worldly bonds? So the singer or the poet is lamenting that how long it will take to make my breath, life breath, that is prana mana, both and mind, because without that I shall not shed my worldly bonds. As long as, when will my life, breath, and mind be pure? When shall I, a pilgrim to the Vrindavan of love? I am a pilgrim to the Vrindavan of love. Love, Vrindavan has been compared to the prema or the divine love. So when shall I be a pilgrim, real pilgrim, not a traveler or a tourist, but a real pilgrim to the Vrindavan of love, shed my worldly bonds? So the author says, the poet says that till my prana and the manas, they are pure, and I get established in buddhi, pure buddhi, then till then I shall not be considered to be a pilgrim to the Vrindavan of love, because the worldly bonds will prohibit me from undertaking such a pilgrimage. When will the colorium of knowledge drive away the darkness from my eyes? The colorium of knowledge is also another simile or another metaphor that is used when we say the colorium of knowledge, Jnananjana. In Kathamrita also this wonderful word is there, Jnananjana. Anjana means the kajal that we normally apply to our ear. The kajal is supposed to purify the eyes, any bacteria or anything. There was a tradition, we used to apply kajal to these young children so that the bacteria and other things can be prevented from entering the eyes. So to keep the eyes pure, this kajal would be, so that's collyrium of knowledge, the knowledge which enables you to remove the darkness from my, which enables me to remove the darkness from my eyes. So that collyrium of knowledge, collyrium has been compared to knowledge which purifies. The purified knowledge drives away any darkness from my eyes, and I can have your vision. When by the touch of the philosopher's stone will this body of iron turn into gold? So the philosopher's stone, Parasmani as it is known in Bengali, if you touch that philosopher's stone, the body of iron will, any object which is touched by this Parasmani becomes gold. That's what they believed. So the philosopher's stone is the wonderful stone of knowledge that will turn this useless body into a golden one. When shall I see the universe pervaded by God and be immersed in love divine? Right now, I'm seeing the universe and its various objects, but I don't see the all pervasive God in and through this universe. If I see that, then I'll be immersed in love divine, because I will see the object of my worship, the object of my divine love, always surrounding me wherever I see, whatever I do. Everywhere I'll get a feeling that I am looking at the same Lord who is all pervading. It's this beautiful poem combines the idea of a personal God and a all pervading God. So he says, universe pervaded by God, the God whom I worship as my Ishta or Hari. If once I get immersed in his divine love, then I see the whole universe as pervaded by him. So one who sees that, uh, the devotee says, the poet says, when will that state come to me? Or when shall I be free from rites and work? Rites means rituals. So now I feel that I should be doing this ritual, that ritual. My love has not become so pure. I still need the props of rituals to prop me up, to stabilize my devotion. And I need to do work also. But when shall I be free from these rites and work and the pride of family and caste? The pride which is making me think of myself as belonging to a rich family, or a family of some of a higher caste. So these caste restrictions, class privilege, and all these things create a sort of pride of family in a person. So he says, still I get free from these rituals and work, which not only harm me but serve to increase the pride of my family and my caste. When will fear and shame loosen their hold and I be freed from convention's pride? This is a great psychological truth. Lajja, Grina, Bhai, Thakur used to say, fear and shame. These two things are very common among people who have a lot of pride and who do not wish to lose what name and fame they have got. So there's a lot of fear. If a person has a lot of wealth, he's afraid of losing it. If he has a lot of name and fame, he is afraid of losing that. He Everything is fraught with fear. As Swamiji said in his beautiful poem Niti Shataka, Swamiji translated Vairagya Shatakam, not Niti Shatakam, Vairagya Shatakam of Bhartruhari. There he says everything is fraught with fear. A rich man is afraid of losing wealth. A popular man or a knowledgeable man is afraid of losing his knowledge, or somebody stealing his knowledge. All the people, a person who has good health is fearful of losing his health. So everything is fraught with fear in this world, and that fear causes a lot of bondage. So when shall I be freed from these conventions? Conventions means the traditions, the fear and shame. Because of shame also, there is a lot of shame involved in losing these things. We feel shameful that we were possessing so many things and somehow circumstances have snatched, so we are ashamed to even show ourselves, thinking that we have lost everything. So when till the fear and shame, lajja and grina and bhai, as long as these three things, Grina means some kind of envy or jealousy. These three qualities, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, should not be there, because otherwise you will not be freed from bondage. So the next verse says, my body besmeared with the dust of devotees' feet, the sweet burden of perpetual dispassion on my shoulders. I shall scoop up the Yamuna's water of divine love and drink it from my hands. So the Yamuna river, because the poet is devoted to Hari and he loves Brindavan, so anything associated with Brindavan, including the Yamuna river, Brindavan is on the banks of the Yamuna river. So he says the love divine is constantly flowing, but If my body is besmeared with the dust of devotees' feet, that is humility. Dust of devotees' feet means humility. I should be so humble that I should consider myself as a, my ego should be reduced so much so that the grace of the Lord flows through me. The sweet burden of perpetual dispassion on my shoulders. So, but perpetually one should be distinguishing between Shreya and Priya, that which is really good and that which is pure, that which is pleasant. So, that distinction or that dispassion with which one rejects the world, not because it is not true, but because they find the love of God to be eternally more fulfilling, more joyful, more blissful, more peaceful than all the other things, objects of the world. So that perpetual dispassion is should be like a sweet burden. People should not feel that renunciation is something very difficult and painful. Renunciation should be a joyful exercise because we are not giving up anything. We are giving up the temporary for the eternal. So that's the idea. The poet says that if you want the Yamuna's water of divine love, if you want to scoop, then you have to bear the sweet burden. Don't think the words are used so carefully. Sweet burden. No doubt people feel that dispassion can be a big burden. You are not, you think the renunciation or everybody thinks renunciation is something very difficult. But if you consider renunciation sweet, that is because you are renouncing something which is transient or temporary for something which is permanent. So, in fact, you are not renouncing, you are going to get a sweet reward by meditating or loving the Lord who can give total fulfillment to you. Then, drunk with love, I shall weep and laugh and swim in the sea of Satchidananda. So, the Satchidananda is the vast Brahman, uh, and my Lord, the Lord who has come in this form, like Hari or any other God, is a doorway. Incarnations are doorways through which I enter and jump into the sea of Satchidananda and make myself immortal. Mad myself, I shall make others mad and dwell always at the feet of the Lord. So, this ecstasy or this ecstatic love has been compared to madness. This madness is of a different kind. As Thakur used to say, Sri Ramakrishna, people are mad for so many things. Somebody told him, why are you mad after God? He said, you people are mad after woman and gold. You are mad after the so many things of the world. People cry jugfuls of tears when they lose something in the world. It's a small object they lose and they go on crying. So Sri Ramakrishna says, you are mad after those things. Do I complain if I see somebody mad after wealth? I, I say, I mean, he doesn't say, he says, what is wrong if I am mad after something which is permanent? So I am mad after God, but how many people are mad after God? People are mad after small things and they destroy their lives because many times we are mad after things which are not worth it. We may be mad after it, but finally when we get it or when we lose it, there's a big because they are temporary, they cannot stay permanently with you. But if you are mad after something which is permanent, eternal, you would never lose it. That's the distinction between being mad after the world. So the worldly things, you become mad after it. One becomes mad after the things of the world, which are temporary. So the joy also is temporary. And when they are withdrawn, when you have to leave it behind, when you die, all these things go away. Whereas if you are mad after the Lord, you enter the Satchidananda, drunk, you swim in the sea of Satchidananda, and you will never lose it. You'll never lose that consciousness, that joy, that bliss absolute. So now Sri Ramakrishna is trying to explain the concept of Dhyana and Vijnana. An intimate knowledge, Vijnana is an intimate knowledge of God by which the universe and all living beings are seeing the manifestations of the divine. Sri Ramakrishna used to make a subtle distinction. Realizing Satchidananda is jnana, but after getting that jnana, after in samadhi, You come down and see the world in a different way. You again start seeing the world. You use your sense organs, use your mind, you use your buddhi, but they have purified now. And you see that these living things are nothing but the manifestations of the Brahman whom you saw. One is the path of neti neti, not this, not this. That is what Vedanta teaches you. You reach that state, and after that you come down. Sri Ramakrishna used to give a beautiful example of a staircase. He says you start ascending the staircase with the hope of reaching the terrace. And as you go along, you see it's made of brick, cement, mortar, and all those things. So as you go up and up and up, you reach the terrace, then you find the terrace is also made of cement, brick, and all those materials. And when you come down also, after reaching the terrace, you have checked everything and you have found that they are all made of the same substance. So after coming down, after people normally wish to think that what is the Brahman is something far superior and the world is simply, no doubt, while we do sadhana, we have to aspire to go to the terrace. We have to aspire to climb the stairs. But after having gone there, you get a understanding that the material with which the terrace is made is the same material with which the steps are also made. So then there is no danger. But till then, you have to aspire to reach the top. After having reached the top, when you come down, it is known as Vijnana. So an intimate knowledge, you get a more intimate knowledge of God. You reach Brahman and then come down. And when you come down, you see this universe which you thought to be Maya or you thought to be something insentient. You feel the same Brahman percolating in and through this. And that is what is known as Vijnana. So in the meantime, Sri Ramakrishna regains outer consciousness. He was deep in Samadhi. So when he comes down, he is trying to explain this phenomena of Vijnana. The songs have ended. Now a very interesting talk begins. Intriguing to every type of person, scholar and fool, young and old, man and woman, to all without distinction. Now Sri Ramakrishna had that capacity to explain these wonderful truths of Vijnana, Jnana, which take university professors so much of effort to even explain it to ordinary people. Whereas here, whether one is a scholar or a fool, young and old, man and woman, anybody who comes, to all without distinction, Thakur is explaining in a very lucid way because he has seen those things. He has experienced those things. He is not quoting from any book like all the academicians or the professors do. They just quote, they say, Upanishad says this, Gita says this, and Vedanta says this, all the different religions say this. They all quote second-hand knowledge, whereas here Thakur is seeing these things, different states. He comes and says, oh, this is what I saw. This is what he goes into Samadhi, goes to the other side, gets Jnana, comes down, shows what Vijnana is and how different he looks at the world. He looks at the world in a different way than us. So now all are spellbound looking at Sri Ramakrishna, who has just come down from the state of Samadhi, and they are all gazing at Thakur's beautiful face. They wonder, where is the terrible pain now? Only a few minutes ago he was complaining about his throat pain and the doctor had told him not to go into ecstasy. But now it seems that he doesn't have any pain at all. He has just come down from that great state of Samadhi and everybody is flabbergasted to see what happened to his pain. Only some time ago he was complaining of pain. Now what has happened to his pain? His face looks like a lotus in full bloom, shining with divine light. Addressing the doctor, Thakur says, give up false modesty. Why be ashamed of repeating the name of the God? Because he saw all the while everybody was singing and Naren was singing. Thakur was also now and then singing and then he goes into Samadhi. So when he comes back, he tells the doctor, why are you still having this fear, hatred and shame? Lajja, Grina and Bhai, envy, fear, envy and shame. You should not have this false modesty. What is the harm if you sing loudly the Lord's name? Why be ashamed of repeating the name of God? As the proverb goes, he's telling that proverb now. Lajja, grina, bhay, teen thakte nai. Shame, hatred, and fear keep one from attaining God. So, these three things, as long as they are there, if you feel that one has to uh, custom one's behavior according to the demands of the surroundings. People are so cautious. They said, oh, you should not be doing this, you should not laugh here, you should not. So, all these manners were preventing Dr. Sarkar from repeating the holy name when everybody else was joining Sri Krishna and practically dancing and singing with ecstasy. So, he is telling, Thakur is telling, as soon as he comes down, he tells Dr. Sarkar that why be ashamed of repeating the name of God? As the proverb goes, shame, hatred, and fear will keep one from attaining God. You think I am a great man. I am a great man, a famous doctor. So I can't dance and utter the name of the Lord. If other big people hear of it, what will they think of me? It would be shame for them to say the doctor was dancing and chanting the name of the Lord. Give up such ideas. So he says, don't bother what the society will say. They don't know better. They just think that such and such a person is a big doctor. Oh, that day he sang. He sang like a young small child. He was dancing in ecstasy. So why do you worry? Why does the opinion of other people matter to you? You just give up such ideas and take the name of the Lord. And just don't worry what the world says. That is what happens when people enter uh, spiritual life. They want some kind of confirmation from the world. And when they see that people don't appreciate that, people don't seem to give them that importance, which uh, which they think they don't appreciate their spiritual ways, the spiritual sadhana that they do. They feel upset. Then they keep doubting. Doubt comes when shame comes. And then they feel am I doing the right thing? So Sri Krishna is telling him, don't be afraid. You may be a great man, you may be a big man, and don't bother if people think. Then the doctor confirms. He says, no, no, I don't think that way. I don't care what others say. Oh, then Sri Krishna jokes. Oh, you are too much that way. Okay. So all laugh. I mean, he says, he tells the doctor, okay, if that is so, it is fine. You are too much that way. Listen. Then he tells something very important. Listen, go beyond knowledge and ignorance. This is something very new. He's trying to explain the concept of Vijnana. Jnana everybody understands. But why should we go beyond ignorance? What does it mean? Listen, go beyond knowledge and ignorance. Only then you will be able to know God. Knowledge of many things is ignorance. I know this, I know that, I know this. There are so many things in the world. And people think the more vast or the more things you know, you are a man of knowledge. But according to Sri Ramakrishna, that is ignorance. Pride of learning is also ignorance. God pervades all of us, all. This conviction is knowledge. If you have that conviction, if you have that vijnana, after getting jnana, if you have that vijnana, knowing Him intimately is called vijnana. This conviction that God pervades all. Say a thorn has struck into your foot. So Sri Ramakrishna is giving an example. You need another thorn to take it out. So what is the purpose of knowledge? What does knowledge do to a person? Sri Ramakrishna is now trying to explain. A thorn is stuck into your foot. You need another thorn to take it out. When you have taken out the thorn that pricked you, you throw them both away. To remove the thorn of ignorance, you first have to acquire the thorn of knowledge. Then both the thorns of knowledge and ignorance have to be thrown away. So this is how he is explaining how we can first with the help of knowledge remove our ignorance and then even give up the pride of knowledge. Lakshmana said to Rama, he is quoting from Ramayana, how strange. Vasishtha Deva, who was their guru, is such a wise man, but even he wept inconsolably at the death of his son. So when Vasishtha lost his son, he was weeping. So Lakshmana found it very strange. He found that Vashishta is our guru, a man of such tremendous knowledge. But why is he weeping? Because his son has died. Does he not know it is all temporary? Then Rama said, brother, he's telling Lakshmana, brother, he who has knowledge also has ignorance. He who has knowledge of one kind also has the knowledge of other kinds. He who is aware of light is also aware of darkness. So, knowledge, and we have to go beyond knowledge and ignorance. That is what Sri Ramakrishna is telling. That he was knowing in a theoretical way what Vedanta is. He had wonderful knowledge. He was the guru to Rama and Lakshmana. But at the same time, he had that knowledge, but he did not have the experience of that knowledge. So that ignorance still remained. And when his son died, he wept inconsolably. So he says, he who is aware of light is also aware of darkness. Brahman is beyond knowledge and ignorance, beyond virtue and vice, beyond righteousness and unrighteousness, beyond purity and impurity. So purity is good, righteousness is good. But after having attained that, you should not be proud of your purity. You have to give up that also. Not give up your purity, just as you take purity and remove your impurity. It's like taking one thorn and removing the other one, then throwing both. But if you retain the other thorn, there is a chance that it will fall down. So the ego may still come and make you impure again. So the ego is what is responsible for our bondage. So righteousness, you fight your unrighteous behavior everywhere which is going, and you do your duty and have righteousness, but you have to leave that also. You should not be proud that I am a righteous person, I am a pure person, the others are impure, I am a virtuous person, the others are full of lack of virtues or they have vices. So if that feeling is there, then you are still bound. So Vasishtha Deva, their guru, cried because he had knowledge, but also he had ignorance along with that. Saying this, Sri Ramakrishna recites a song of Ram Prasad. So Ram Prasad's song is a wonderful song which explains this. Come, O mind, let us go. Aire mon bedate jabi. Kali kalpataru mule. So, come, O mind, let us go for a walk to Kali, the wish fulfilling tree. Kali kalpataru. Let us go for a walk so that we reach the wish fulfilling tree of Kali. And there, what will we do by going there? So he says, gather the four fruits of life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So to live a complete life, we need to have these four fruits in life. But one has to be very careful. Moksha is the ultimate reality. So he says in the next line, of your two wives, when you go there, he is comparing our worldly tendencies as two wives. One is worldliness, is one wife. Dispassion or renunciation is another wife. Take only dispassion along. Now, since you are going there, don't take both. If you take worldliness there, you will suffer. So, among your two wives, you have to discriminate and take only dispassion with you. And ask her eldest son discrimination for the truth about reality. So, when you have dispassion as your companion, when you have vairagya as your companion, then viveka or discrimination or the distinction between real and unreal and all those things become very clear. So discrimination for the truth about reality. To reach reality, we have to discriminate first. And that discriminate comes as a result of dispassion. So Sri Ramakrishna is singing the song of Ram Prasad. It's a big song, but he has sung only the first two lines. So Shyam Bose, who was listening, the next heading is Beyond Speech and Mind, the nature of Brahman cannot be described. Now Shyam Bose, who was listening to this song and Sri Ramakrishna telling him this about Ram Prasad's song, he says, what will remain when both thorns are thrown away? Now everybody tries to understand these great truths in their own way. So he's saying, Shyam Bose is asking, what will remain when both the thorns are thrown away? Okay, as you said, I will take the thorn of knowledge, remove the thorn of ignorance from my foot, and then throw both away. Then what will remain? Then Sri Ramakrishna says, The eternal, ever pure consciousness, the essence only will remain. When we remove both knowledge and ignorance, which is trying to cover the pure essence, which is neither knowledge nor ignorance, the pure consciousness. How can I make it clear to you? Sri Ramakrishna says, now what remains? How can I tell you now? But he gives an example. He says, if somebody asks you how ghee tastes, how can you explain? We can at the most tell him how ghee is prepared, but how it tastes, or ghee, how does ghee appear? You may say it appears slightly whitish, yellowish white, and depending on the butter which you use, you heat it, then it becomes ghee, you melt it. So all these things you can explain, but how, if somebody says, how does a ghee taste as opposed to something else, or just how does ghee taste, then how can you say? You have to taste it yourself. Unless you do that, how can I tell you how ghee tastes? What is ghee like? It's just like ghee. A girl said to her friend, then he gives another beautiful example. So in India, normally people would not talk, they were so shy, the brides would not talk of their husband openly. So a girl said to her friend, your husband has arrived. Tell me, what is the joy you feel? The friend said, sister, you will only know when you have a husband. How can I tell you? So this young girl who was not married, he says, how can I tell you what it is to have a husband? I can't tell you that unless you yourself marry. So Sri Ramakrishna says, the Purana says, when Bhagavati, that is Divine Mother, took birth in the house of Himalaya, that is Himalaya Putri is Parvati, son of Parvata is Parvati, who is born of Parvati. So he is also known as Giriraj, the Lord of the mountains. uh, she showed herself to him in various forms. So when the Divine Mother took birth in the house of Himalaya, the abode of Himalayas, which is Parvata, the Giriraj, when he saw the Lord of the mountains, Himalaya, saw her in various forms. He had already seen her in many forms. That is how the story goes. He said to her, Mother, may I now have the vision of Brahman mentioned in the Vedas? Then the Shakti or Bhagavati replied, Father, if you want to see Brahman, you must have the company of holy people. So I can give you the vision of different forms. That is why in spirituality, we give less importance to these experiences, these visions, because they are very trivial things. We may have the vision, we may have some light, we may have some vision, but then you can't get the vision of the all-pervading consciousness, which is Brahman. Our journey will be cut short. We will be stuck at some lower level. So people are so keen to have these different experiences. They feel such and such things happen, we will be happy. Some people go to temples and then expect some miracle. I have known some people, they just wait for the flower to fall. And even that makes them so happy. They think they have achieved something. Oh, today you will not believe I had gone to the temple. As soon as I prayed, the flower fell down from the idol. And they think such a big achievement they have made. But that is not what is spirituality. Spirituality cannot be explained through this mystical phenomena. They are steps, they are milestones on the way. They may be milestones in some cases, but they are not all. So he says that will not happen unless you have the company of holy people. So Shakti herself is telling, you may see these visions. I can give you, at the most, I can give you these visions. She's telling her father. But the vision of Brahman mentioned in the Vedas, the Satchidananda Brahman, that you cannot have without having satsanga or having a guru or having satsanga. Through that alone, you can have that vision of Brahman. What Brahman is cannot be explained in words. Otherwise, we could have read it in the books and then got that knowledge. But it is not possible. By reading, you get an intellectual understanding of what Satchidananda. We can speak about it. We can hear speeches about it. There's so many talks on the internet, YouTube, where you can understand the most complex ideas about Brahman. But unless you have the holy company, Sri Ramakrishna says, you will not understand what that Brahman is. Someone said, Everything has been made impure by the tongue, but Brahman has never been defiled. The moment you speak, the highest reality gets reduced to something what it is not, something which it is not. So if you say this is Brahman, then you are wrong, because the tongue cannot utter it. The mind cannot conceive of it. It has to be experienced. And that experience, Sri Ramakrishna says, Bhagavati told her father, if you want to see Brahman, I mean experience Brahman, then you must have the company of holy people who would take you to or make you realize that Brahman. And once you have seen that, as Sri Ramakrishna showed it to Swami Vivekananda, then your doubt will go. Then and then alone you will understand what the scripture says. The vision mentioned in the Vedas, I can give you the vision. I can give you the vision of different aspects of mother. I can give you the visions where you'll see some light, you'll hear some sounds, you'll hear some vibrations. There's so many people who get these experiences. But it really means nothing, because they just prove to be obstructions. When we are moving, we just want these small props to prop us up in our sadhana. Unless we get it, we feel we have not done. That is why when Naren asked, I don't get all these visions, Sri Ramakrishna told him, no, you will not get them, because you are far higher than those people. You have outlived the need to have these small experiences. They are meant for kindergarten people who still want to still keep on having doubts. And to remove these doubts, now and then, if they have these experiences, it may strengthen their doubts. It may strengthen or remove their doubts. It may strengthen their faith. That's the only purpose it serves. But after strengthening the faith, you have to march forward and not make too much of these experiences. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna says what Brahman is cannot be explained in words, neither through these small experience. They have to be, it has to be experienced. And we cannot make it impure by the tongue. That means in India we believe that anything, any food which is once consumed by somebody, others don't consume it because it has become uchista or impure. But he says Brahman has never become uchista. No human being or no rishi or no, even God has not, the avatara also has not been able to explain or through words what this Brahman is. He can at the most give you that experience. That is why he said you must have the company of holy people. So Sri Ramakrishna then says it means that the Vedas, the Puranas, the Tantras and other scriptures may be said to have been defiled because they are recited by the tongues of men. The moment we recite it, we are speaking of something lower, which just indicates what Brahman might be like. But then that is only a step to realizing Brahman. But what Brahman is, nobody is able to express in speech. So, so Brahman has not yet been defiled. It has not become Uchista, because people talk of Brahman. Brahman is a name, but what it is, nobody has been able to tell, and nobody will be able to tell. One cannot describe in words the play and communion with Sachidananda. Only he knows who has experienced it. So Sri Ramakrishna uh, says that unless you experience it, I can't explain to you. Just as he gives some simple examples also before, where he says, unless you marry, you won't know what it is to have a husband. You are not married, so how can I tell you what is it to like to have a husband? You have to marry. So also, unless you realize Brahman or live in the company of people who have realized Brahman, then you have a scope or chance, or you associate, you meditate on somebody. We meditate on Sri Ramakrishna because he is our doorway to Brahman. We meditate on any incarnation, and we don't meditate, and we don't, the true devotee doesn't want to realize Sri Ramakrishna, to see his face. He is seeing it anyway. He may get a vision of it, but that doesn't guarantee that he will have the vision of Brahman. For that, he has to have holy company. And in holy company, you understand that what you had seen was just a rudimentary vision, a step towards the higher visions. So, the higher you go, the more you keep holy company, then you understand that what really is experienced, the experience of Brahman cannot be conveyed through words. And if somebody tries to say that I had this experience, that experience, It may be true at a lower level, he or she may have that experience, but that is not the whole truth, and we should not stop because that will not give us peace. So, addressing the doctor, Sri Ramakrishna says, look, you cannot attain knowledge until you get rid of the ego. The small ego which says that I have knowledge or I have ignorance, even the fact that if you say I don't know, people who sometimes have a false sense of ego, they say I don't know anything. They may be knowing certain things, but they just want to show off that they are humble. So even that is not, one ego is not good, whether it is good or bad. Of course, the mm, ripe ego, pakami, the ego that I am the son of the Lord, I am a child of the Lord, and all those things, or I am one with the Lord. All this ego is good because that ego ultimately results in destruction of the ego. That's why Sri Ramakrishna says you can't have that knowledge unless you have that ego. If you have an ego and still you claim that you have knowledge, then that is incomplete knowledge. Then Sri Ramakrishna says there is a saying, when shall I be free? When I ceases to be, when shall I be free? That the answer is in the question itself. When shall I be free? And when I shall be free? When that I goes away, when that I vanishes, then me and mine are ignorance. Sri Ramakrishna says, Ami or Amar, me and mine. Ami or Amar. This is me, this is mine. So the whole world we gather around ourselves and say, this is my property, my house, my body, my knowledge. So me and mine are ignorance, you and yours are knowledge. You and yours means tumihi. When you recite the mantra and we say Namaha, not me, it is you. Namaha, not me, but it is you. So we constantly tell it is you and it is yours. If we have that conviction that Lord alone is the source of knowledge and He alone can give us knowledge. So the devotee says, Oh Lord, I am not the doer, you are the doer. You alone do everything. I am just an instrument. I do what you make me do. All this splendor, this universe is yours. This house, this family is yours. Nothing is mine. I am your servant. I have only the right to serve you as I command. So that is how Sri Ramakrishna is telling, as long as this I is present in anybody, will not have knowledge. And then he gives the example. Anybody who has read even a little begins at once to put on airs. I had a talk about God with Kali Krishna Tagore. Kali Krishna Tagore was somebody with whom Sri Ramakrishna had met. He said, I know all that. Maybe Sri Ramakrishna wanted to tell some things from his experience. But he had read about it. So Kali Krishna Tagore said, Oh, what is so great? I have also read it. I know it. I said, does a person who visits Delhi brag about it? Does a Babu go around saying he's a gentleman? If one is a real gentleman, he doesn't go on telling everybody, see, I am a gentleman. Oh, I am. He doesn't do it. So he's telling you, if you feel that I know that, that means you really don't know. The Upanishads also, these things are mentioned. But Sham Bose, who was very devoted to perhaps Kali Krishna Tagore, just tries to tell Sri Ramakrishna, because Sri Ramakrishna was very frank. He used to tell everything. Even he may be Kali Krishna Tagore, he may belong to the Tagore family, but doesn't matter. Shambho says, but Kali Krishna Tagore has great respect for you. So now Sri Ramakrishna, because he wanted, because there are people who make a show of respect for others. So Sri Ramakrishna wanted to make clear that what do you mean when you say somebody, you do not know the motive with which they respect others. The genuine respect is out of humility. So when Shambhos said, Sri Ramakrishna indirectly gave him an answer telling what kind of respect Kali Krishna Tagore had for other people. He was full of arrogance and ignorance, but at the same time he wanted to make a show that I am humble. So Sri Ramakrishna explains it such a beautiful and subtle way without naming him, without directly implicating him. He says, what can I say, brother? Because he wanted to convince Shambhos. If Shambhos was wise enough, he would have got the hint, what he wanted to say about Kali Krishna Tagore. What can I say, brother? There was a scavenger woman at the temple garden in Dakshineshwar, so puffed up because she had some jewelry. A poor woman in Sri Krishna gives indirect example. It is like a poor woman having a jewelry. One day she was walking on the path, a few people passed by her. Angrily she shouted at them, "Hey, get out of my way." If she could be so arrogant, what can I say about the pride of others? He says, when rich people flaunt their jewelry, I understand. But a person who doesn't even have anything to eat, somehow they manage to get jewelry. They have a greater ego than the people who really have it, than really rich people. And when she saw that because of her appearance, perhaps nobody bothered whether she had a necklace or not. She had some jewelry which she somehow got it, and she wanted her respect. She demanded respect from people. So she said, "Hey, get out of my way." I mean, just to show that to be noticed. She wanted herself to be noticed with all this jewelry because she knew nobody would care for me. So this is the kind of pride people have. So Sri Ramakrishna says, even if such a person, such a poor woman is flaunting her riches, then what about the others? What about the pride of others? People who really have millions of dollars. It's so difficult it is to remove this ego. What he is trying to tell Shambhos that Kali Krishna Tagore, you may think he has no ego, but he has. It's something similar to this. So Shambhos then asks another question. Sir, there is punishment for sins. How can you say God is doing everything? So then he asks a question. If there is punishment for sins, then why does God make us do that and then punishes us? And you say God is doing everything. So Sri Ramakrishna just jokes. He says you have the intellect of a goldsmith. A goldsmith is supposed to be a very stingy person, very calculative person. So Sri Ramakrishna did not like people who are very calculative. They always talked in terms of give and take. They always think of barter. If I give you something, even if I give you love, if I give you some kind of grace, if I give you something, I always expect something back. If I give love, I expect love from you. So there's no unitary or maybe one-sided love for anybody. They don't have that. They have an intellect. So Sri Ramakrishna is taunting him. He said, you have the intellect of a goldsmith. That means goldsmith is very, very cautious. He will not even let go of a speck of gold. So then Narendra is explaining to him a goldsmith's intellect means a calculating mind. Lest Shambhos doesn't understand what Sri Ramakrishna is referring to. He says goldsmith's mind means calculative mind. Then Sri Ramakrishna will end with this, gives you the example. He says, when you go, I tell you, when you go to the mango orchard, I tell you, eat the mangoes. What's the use of calculating how many hundreds of trees there are in the orchard, how many thousands of branches are there, how many millions of leaves? Why waste your time calculating all this? You have come to eat mangoes, eat them. So here Sri Ramakrishna will continue next time. Uh, Here Sri Ramakrishna is explaining to Shambhos that don't bother about who is what and all these calculations in the world. Don't have a calculative mind. There's no end to it. It is just like calculating how many hundreds of trees are there in the orchard, and you spend all your time and end up not eating anything. Instead of that, it is better you eat a few mangoes that will make you more fulfilled than calculating all the thousands of branches and the leaves and all those things. So when you come to the mango orchard, just concentrate on eating the mangoes. I mean, come to the essence of the scripture. Don't go around and round and round discussing all the scriptures and trying to read commentaries and all those things. Just try to go and get the essence. And that Sri Ramakrishna said is possible only through satsanga, because it is only another lamp. When you light a lamp, you can't take a lamp and from a distance light it. The lamp has to come near another lamp and the flame has to touch the other wick, and then only the wick will catch fire. You can't say I'll burn it from remote. I'll keep the lamp here, automatically it won't. So you have to have the holy company of people who have this spirituality, and then that spirituality gets transferred. So that is how the importance of satsang. As Sri Ramakrishna used to always say, I'll conclude with this. He used to say, there is nirjan vas, going into solitude so that you can make your mind quiet, but that is not enough. Repeating Hari's name, even that is not enough. Nirjan vas, uh, repetition of Nama Sankirtan, Nama Guna Gan, means singing and devoting yourself to spiritual practices, and finally says Satsanga. And then, of course, Nitya Vastu Viveka, trying to discriminate. When you go into solitude, you start thinking. No doubt, solitude can be painful to many people, but it is exactly when we are in solitude that we get a desire to find out what progress we have made, where are we, where did we start our life, where have we come, how long shall I struggle. So, all these things you need some time. Everybody is busy, wants to be busy, but nobody wants to enjoy their leisure. If you get leisure, they are worried how can they spend their time. Either they will play cards or take a TV and switch on and just go on watching. Then you ask them, what are you doing? Oh, I want to pass my time. I just don't know how to pass my time, especially in the COVID days. But people are hankering. According to Sri Ramakrishna, one does not get solitude. People are so busy that solitude should be something which should be cherished, because nirjan was makes you think about the temporary and permanent things in your life, what will remain with you. It enables you to plan where you are, where you started, what will you achieve, when will you achieve. All these things you can think only when you are in solitude. So he begins with nirjanvas, solitude. Then he says nitya nitya vastu viveka, trying to find out what is eternal, what is non-eternal, and give away the non-eternal and catch hold of the eternal as much as you can. So solitude is meant for that. So if one uses the solitude in a proper way, he will have covered two steps already, and then he can do Nam Guna Sankirtan, or Nam, repetition of the name which the Guru has given. And finally he says Sadhu Sangha. So if after all these things, then you want to find out whether the experiences you had, were they genuine experiences? As Sri Ramakrishna said, it's only through holy company you can compare your notes and find out whether what you did, what you theoretically thought, what you considered as eternal, was it correct? Otherwise, everybody goes to solitude and thinks in his own way and confuses his mind. That is not what solitude is for. Solitude is not for thinking in any wayward way. That's why to Sri Ramakrishna is cautioning us. He says satsang is also required. Unless you go to a place where people can tell you whether you are on the right path or not, or solitude or isolation can be dangerous with all the other three qualities. So, four things you have to remember, Sri Ramakrishna. And then he says, you have come to eat the mangoes, you eat it. Don't bother about, don't go on endlessly arguing about things, what is right, what is not right. So, anyway, let us conclude. And if there are some questions, you can ask. Yes, there is one question. There's one very big question, so I'll just read it. It is important to know what Swami Vivekananda said and wrote about Sri Ramakrishna. To view Ramakrishna through the lens of Vivekananda raises many thoughts, questions, and ideas. Vivekananda said that he owed everything to Sri Ramakrishna, who transformed his life, and yet the same Vivekananda, when he was in America for the first time, he hardly mentioned Sri Ramakrishna. It is impossible to imagine that he forgot Sri Ramakrishna for a single moment of time in his life. But in his Chicago address, Ramakrishna did not feature as the main motivating force. Later, of course, in Sri Ramakrishna's praise and glory, Vivekananda became hyperbolic. But why in the first instance he did not talk about Ramakrishna? It appears to be so intentional, so deliberate, and one wonders why. It's a very good question. It is deliberate, it's definitely intentional. Even his Guru Bhais were confused. He said, Sri Krishna gave you everything. And Swamiji himself mentioned that Sri Krishna can create 1,000 Vivekanandas from the dust of his feet. I was lucky that I was chosen, but he could have taken anybody and converted them into another Vivekananda. So he respected, and not only respected, he owed everything to Sri Krishna. And still, especially during his first visit and even the second visit, he gave only 2 talks on Sri Krishna. I have clearly explained to you why he did that. On the talk on Thakur which I delivered, I explained very clearly why he did not speak of Sri Krishna. He told his Guru Bhai, who was very much upset, he said, you have just gone and spoken whatever you felt in Vedanta and other things. They are fine, but why didn't you mention Sri Krishna? So he gave 2 explanations. First, he said, do you think you have understood Sri Krishna? He is far greater than your conception of Sri Krishna. So one thing was that I knew that by trying to portray him as this, I am limiting him. By trying to portray what Sri Krishna is, I was afraid. That is the first reason. I was afraid that I would limit him. Second thing is a historical reason. He said, if I go to the West and tell that Sri Krishna is a great person, they don't know anything about his life. They don't know anything about Vedanta. They don't know anything about our religion and other things. So Swamiji said, if I had said that Sri Krishna is a great incarnation, which he believed he was, but he says, oh, after all, you are his disciples. You will always say, don't worry, we have our Buddhas, we have our Christ, we don't want another person. We have our own Buddha, we have our own Christ. So what is there? There are so many dogmatic people saying that uh, uh, we have our own incarnation. So there are thousands of incarnations all over the world. Everybody tries to make his Guru an incarnation. So he says that they would have thought that I have come here to add one more holy figure. But if they read his message, then they will not be perhaps not inspired to read his message. So I first decided to give his message. And then when they feel curious and when they have elevated themselves after reading the wonderful message of Vedanta, which he says he interpreted according to the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, then he said, people will come and ask, who is the Guru of this person? Who is the Guru of Vivekananda? And then they will come and then they will be in a position to understand him better. Otherwise, they will simply reject him. As I told you, when Sri Ramakrishna's gospel was presented for the first time, everybody was afraid that how will people understand these things? They will reject it. They are so fond of the world. They are so fond of holding on to the small toys of the world. They don't want to give it up. And how can you preach? He in fact said many places I was thinking of mentioning Sri Krishna, but the vibrations were so bad. The vibrations were so worldly. He says, if I say these words now, it will just be wasted because they will not accept it. You need a basic amount of purity. That's what he said. I felt my mind was so agitated. I said, how can I speak about my wonderful master, about his wonderful purity, about his wonderful renunciation? If I start speaking, I'm degrading myself, degrading my Guru. I can't. Jesus said something wonderful. People don't understand the meaning of Jesus's phrase when he used very harsh words. People say, why did he not tell all these things, the Sermon on the Mount and all those things to all? He took some selected people. He went there, and when he understood that these people are sincere, these people are in a position to understand the real message of the Spirit, they have less worldliness. They may not be fully free from worldliness, but he knew that they were less worldly. So to them he gave the highest message. And then he added a beautiful line. He said, do not throw the pearls before the swine. lest they trample upon it. So if there is a swine and you throw the pearls, pearls are useful for people who value it. So when Sri Ramakrishna was the topic, I mean, when Swami Vivekananda wanted to speak, he thought, oh, this is a wonderful pearl. How many people will understand him? That's why he spoke about Sri Ramakrishna when 12 disciples, selected disciples, came to him. He was tired of all the crowd whom he had to address, because many of them would not even appreciate what Sri Ramakrishna was, what his message was. So that was the reason he said, many times he started, but he gave two beautiful lectures on my master. And of course, he composed a lot of things. If you see the compilation, my master and his message, and there's so many small books where he has spoken a lot about Sri Ramakrishna in different places, and including he gave all the material, and he wanted Max Muller to write, because he knew the Western people would read if somebody from them writes about Sri Ramakrishna. So he asked, in fact, Max Muller, when he published that book from Oxford, it was Swami Shardananji who wrote the whole book. Great Master was written much later in 1910. But before that, the gist of the Great Master was given to Max Muller, who lived in Oxford. And based on that, without much editing, he just published it in his name. And then Sri Ramakrishna became popular. Because, see, it is people gave so much importance to scholarship and academicians. So if Max Muller writes, oh, then I should read. But if Swami Sharadanandji, they will ask, who is this Sharadananda? Why should I read? His guru is just writing about his own guru. So what is so special about him? But if others write, that is why Swami Vivekananda said, when he tried to speak about Vedanta in India, nobody listened to him. But the moment he became famous in America, when he could create a sensation, then Indians also, because we had that tendency at that time, especially in those days, when everything coming from the West was considered to be superior. So that tendency is still there. That colonial mindset is still there. So we think everything that comes from the West is fine. We don't even discriminate. Do we ever think what are these things which are coming to us, how we are destroying the environment, how these things are coming back to us in the form of viruses and all these problems? So we don't think about it. We just think everything, unless it gets a stamp of some great university, we think it's superior. So Swamiji knew that. Even in Harvard University, he was asked to speak, but he was very careful. He spoke in their language. But to speak about Sri Ramakrishna, to place Sri Ramakrishna before them, place his utter simplicity, the wonderful, pure and simple message is so difficult. So that's why he did not speak about him. Okay. So now there's one question, last question, I'll end with that. We normally say lotus feet of the Lord. Why lotus? Lotus has a very important uh, lotus as a flower. We can't say it is a national flower, but it is a beautiful flower, typical to India. You won't find lotuses in many countries, cold countries. But in India, that has been used as a metaphor, or maybe a nice uh, uh, lotus flower is most superior. See, for example, we say, because we believe that lion is a very superior and strong animal, so we say he is a lion amongst men. That doesn't mean he is a lion, but we just compare with the best animal, best among animals, because of its bravery and all those things. So similarly, lotus is a great flower. So the feet, and moreover, we call the lotus feet because lotus is something which we offer to the Lord. So if we consider them to be ordinary feet, we will not be inspired to worship them. So that's why we say the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is something which poets have used. Even they use the eyes, lotus eyed, Kamalaksha. Kamala is a lotus, Aksha means eye, Iksha. So Kamala Aksha means one who has lotus eyes. So the lotus petals, they have a particular beautiful shape. So if you have beautiful eyes, we say he is lotus eyed. And Sri Ramakrishna used to also describe Naren's eyes as lotus eyed, Kamalaksha. Used to call him Kamalaksha also. So These are all symbolic, and we have to understand it in that light. So I take your leave now. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.